The Democrats are starting to panic. I know. I said the thing. Democrats are panicking because mail-in voting is backfiring really bad. And it's too little too late. You know, I'm one of the first people to say, whoa, mail-in voting's a bad idea. Of course, the Republicans were. They rejected it outright, saying this is going to be bad. It's going to be fraud. And they kept saying Trump claims without evidence that there's going to be impropriety in the election. There is. And there's story after story. You know what I love? John Oliver did a segment about it, and it was the funniest thing ever. He was like, it's current year, and there's 500,000 ballots being rejected, according to the Washington Post. And I'm like, yo, you guys are the ones ragging on Donald Trump about this. It's the left, the Democrats, and the media claiming Trump's making it up. Maybe if you listened, you wouldn't be in this jam. Oh, but now they are. You see, Republicans are going to go vote in person. Most of them, yeah. And Democrats are mostly going to vote by mail, so they say. And ballots are extremely likely to be discounted relative to regular in-person votes. So congratulations, you played yourself. Here's the story. CBS New York says election concerns grow in Bergen County, New Jersey after dozens of mail-in ballots found discarded in dumpster. Oh, another one of these. I remember when Donald Trump said that there were ballots in a river or something. And it was because Trump is just, you know, he skims the news. And what he meant was a ditch. Ballots were found in a ditch. Well, then you get this journalist talking to Kayleigh McEnany at the press briefing. And he's like, well, what river was this? And Kayleigh goes, I believe the president was referring to ballots that were found in a ditch. I just want to know what this river is. Well, he was mistaken. He meant a ditch. It was found in a ditch in Pennsylvania. Well, actually, it was Wisconsin. And he's like, but I want to know where the river is. Dude, you're not doing journalism. He was just saying, where's the river over and over again. Dude, there's no joke. What are you talking about? Okay, we get it. You said it the first time. Shut up and move on. But they don't want to admit it. Well, here we go. Democrats' mail voting pivot from Axios. You see, maybe after seeing all of these votes collapse, this is from 2 weeks ago, mind you, but I had to talk about it because considering we're this close to the election, I saw this John Oliver thing and I asked this friend of mine, I was like, why are Democrats encouraging mail-in voting if mail-in voting is broken? But John Oliver apparently just realized it. Too little too late, I'm afraid. Check this out. Democrats spent the early months of the COVID panic urging their base to vote absentee. But as threats, no, they wanted universal mail-in voting. Axios, get your phrasing correct. Get your framing correct. Universal mail-in voting is when they just send out a ballot whether you want it or not. Absentee is when you ask for it. They say, but as threats of U.S. Postal Service delays, Team Trump litigation, and higher ballot rejection rates become clearer, many are pivoting to promote more in-person voting as well. Why it matters. Democrats are exponentially more likely to vote by mail than Republicans this year. And if enough mail-in ballots are lost, rejected, on a technicality or undercounted, it could change the outcome of the presidential election or other key races. I'm sorry, man. If the polling is correct, like Joe Biden's up 10 points, but then all of these ballots just disappear, it is going to be the funniest election ever. Could you imagine? The exit polls show that, Joe Biden wins with a 10-point landslide, but where are the ballots? We can't find any of them. What's that? 20% of Democrats voted by mail and all of their ballots are gone? Yikes. Donald Trump could win because they pushed a bunk voting system that Trump warned them about. Amazing. Driving the news. In Colorado, former Governor John Hickenlooper, who's running against Senator Cory Gardner, told Axios that he's encouraging voters to physically take their mail-in ballots to a drop box and to do so early, really early. Paulette Jordan, a Democratic candidate for Senate in Idaho, told Axios that she's encouraging voters to take their filled out mail ballots in person to the county courthouse. Black PAC also moved from exclusively educating voters on voting by mail to informing about all available options: in person, absentee, early voting, and voting on election day. The Collective PAC, the largest black-led political action committee targeting black voters and candidates, is pivoting too. We're shifting away from making plans to vote by mail to voting early in person, Quentin James, the group's founder, told Axios. The pivot is reflected by Barack and Michelle Obama, both of whom have been encouraging Democrats not just to vote by mail, but to vote early any way they can, including in person. We recently saw this roundtable, I guess, with Barack Obama, and I think Trevor Noah was in it. Was it Trevor Noah? Maybe it wasn't Trevor Noah. I can't remember who it was. But he said he was voting by mail and encouraging people to vote by mail. And he may have said to bring your mail in person. I'm not sure. But Joe Biden voted in person. Yeah, the messaging was a bad idea. And it's going to backfire miserably on the Democrats. This may be why Trump wins. Think about it. Biden campaign officials say they've always encouraged people to vote however they are most comfortable, and that they never exclusively stressed one method over another. For us, it's always been about how we can get people to vote early no matter what. And that's our number one priority, said Jen Ritter, National States Director for the Biden campaign. Folks who like to vote in person can still do that early too by filling out your ballot and physically bringing it to the polling location. But there are signs of potential trouble given the volumes of absentee voting that's expected this year. My favorite part of this segment is how I've done segments all about these problems over and over again. When the news breaks, I'm like, hey, guess what? Mail-in voting is broken. And I've been criticized for it. I've had these lefty journalists argue that YouTube should flag my videos for disinformation. I bring you now to, karma, comeuppance, and reaping what you have sown. A fresh Pennsylvania state Supreme Court ruling could impact tens of thousands of ballots in the swing state. In Florida, voters are twice as likely to have their absentee ballot rejected if they've never voted that way before. University of Florida political science professor Dan Smith told Axios. In North Carolina, black voters' ballots are being rejected at more than 4 times the rate of white voters, per 538. Overall, data shows new, younger, black, and Hispanic voters are more likely to have their ballots rejected. More than 550,000 mail-in ballots were rejected during the presidential primaries this year, per an NPR analysis. Remember back in the day when shows would do like the recap show, where it's like you're watching an episode of The Simpsons, but instead of being a real episode, they just show clips from a bunch of older episodes. I never understood what the point was. I guess it was to fill time and ways like here's an easy episode nobody cares about. Let's just I hated those shows. It was like not even watching anything, for the most part. That's what this feels like. The best of Tim Pool calling out mail-in ballots. In reality, it's them realizing, it's all broken. Think about what would have happened if these people actually watched my content instead of accusing me of being right-wing. They would have actually protected themselves. Now they're in trouble. They say masks, gloves, sanitizer, and bleach wipes are more widely available than in the initial months of the pandemic. Election officials have had longer to prepare for crowd management than during the primaries, and Americans without underlying health issues and pre-existing conditions have become more accustomed to social distancing and taking measured risks as they navigate public spaces, such as grocery stores. Flashback. The messaging pivot has begun by the start of the Democratic National Convention. Michelle Obama told voters, we've got to vote early in person if we can, even if it means wearing masks and comfortable shoes and packing a brown bag dinner and maybe breakfast too. If you can vote early in person or by mail, says Barack. Last week, Joe Biden and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, voted in person one day before Delaware's primary. On the first day of an early in-person voting in Virginia, long lines formed quickly, with voters waiting 2 hours or more to cast a ballot. Well, I'd say I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so and I don't hate to say it. Actually, I'm going to say, told you so. I can't tell you what's going to happen in this election. I don't know. Maybe the mail-in voting breaks and it hurts Trump too. Maybe this results in long lawsuits that even though Trump won, they challenge him. I think that's what's likely. I think what's going to happen is that Donald Trump is going to win cleanly on election night. And I think they knew Trump was going to win. I think they knew their polling was breaking. I think they knew that Trump voters were lying about who they supported because of peer pressure and pressure from, mainstream media. They knew they were going to lose. Because of that, they went full in on mail-in voting. And I think they knew it was going to break. You couldn't ignore the things I was seeing. It was coming from the New York Times, NPR, the Washington Post. And I was thinking to myself, why were they ignoring this? They're hurting themselves. They knew they were going to lose. So they self-sabotaged so that when they lose, they can claim it wasn't legitimate, that they only lost because their votes are being disqualified. It's not fair. Now, there's a potential for cheating, but I think cheating's a lot harder than people realize. Although we've seen some forms of it, I don't think they're going to fabricate votes. Maybe. I think what may happen is ballot harvesting, where they go around collecting votes for people they know are going to support them and not the votes for people who, wouldn't. And that flies in the face of their argument that they're trying to make it easier for everyone to vote. No, they're not. They're trying to get their person to vote. South Park said it best. They did this episode where everyone's trying to convince Stan to vote between a giant douche and a turd sandwich. And he says, what's the point? Finally, when he says, okay, I'll vote, I guess I'll vote, turd sandwich. Then I think Kyle's like, no, don't vote for them. Vote for my person. And then Cartman's like, oh, good. It was the perfect example. It was the perfect example of how voting works. Everybody wants you to vote. They want you to vote for their person. I'll tell you what, I want you to vote. I want you to vote for your person. If it's Biden, if it's Trump, if it's Joe Jorgensen, vote for who you think is right, and vote in the most secure way possible. Everybody should have a right to should have the right to vote. We've had conversations about enfranchising people, but making sure that their votes are tied to actually caring about their community. But in the end, right now, we have a right to vote. The Democrats should have paid attention. I'll leave it there. Next segment will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.